Well, the Cybertruck has just been launched, it's stainless steel and needs no paint. Why do we paint cars? Dave takes it on, looks into the history and the future of painting cars. Well, Cybertruck hit the roads late last year and was both ridiculed and adored for being delivered in stainless steel with not a scrap of paint. It was a Marmite moment. You either love it or hate it. But why is it such a shock? See, painting a new car has recently become a very expensive and time-consuming process that can cost around £10,000 a car. It's getting ridiculous, the new paints. Well, if we go back to the beginning, the first cars were made of steel. It was the only material available and strong enough to support the weight of the engine and the gearbox, plus the occupants, and also withstand the forces experienced while driving. Steel, as we all know, rusts, so it needs protecting. So our early cars 100 years ago had their steel panels painted. Not for decoration, they were black, but to protect the panels from corroding away. And today, the primary purpose of the paint is still to protect the metal underneath from corroding, but recently it's also become a fashion statement. The right colour is almost as important as the right manufacturer, to some. Now, when preparing a car for painting, you find that there are multiple processes. These start with just washing. Long before the panel even gets anywhere near the paint line, it must be spotlessly clean. This involves washing with detergents, getting degreasing, and then getting it absolutely spotlessly dry. Paint does not stick well to grease or water, or indeed steel. So the first process is often an electro-dipping process, whereby the entire body shell or component is connected to one terminal, often positive, and the coating solution, paint, into the other, the negative. The body or component is then immersed totally into the solution, submerged, and the current ensures that the coating gets attracted onto the bodywork, onto the panel, into every little nook and cranny, even those you can't see, with a nice even layer. This is often referred to as an e-coat. But paint can't stick to this. So now we need a primer, just like when you paint wood. But the e-coat must obviously be dried beforehand. Well, the primer is attractive to both the e-coat and the paint, making it ideal to ensure the paint sticks to the primer and the primer sticks to the e-coat. An uneven primer layer will lead to flaking or peeling. This again needs to dry completely. Now, we all know what happens if you try to paint on top of a previous wet layer of paint. It just pulls off. Well, finally, the colour is added, the paint itself. And this is what gives the car its colour, but it's not the top coat. This can need 4 or 5 layers to build up the final colour, particularly if it's metallic. Then that all needs to dry. Obviously, they do use quick-drying paint. Well, the top coat is a clear coat, and it's solely to protect the paint, the colour, from harm caused by the weather or ultraviolet from the sun. This again will often take 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 layers to get the final finish. Then it must dry completely. Well, finally, the body is then inspected by hand or by eye to make sure the paint is even and there are no specks of dust or bare patches. If found, they need to be corrected by hand before the body proceeds down the production line. So yes, you can take delivery of your brand new car and find it has already had repairs done to the paintwork before it even left the factory. They're not going to scrap or strip a whole car just because of a tiny blemish. It is hand repaired. Well, the entire production or assembly process is by far the most time intensive, and until now there's been no alternative. Almost all materials corrode or rust, they are different, and so they need protecting. The only materials that don't rust are usually horrendously expensive and often almost impossible to work with. Stainless steel is a great example of this. Now, the word stainless should really be split into two. Stainless, because there are countless processes that go into making stainless steel, and not all of them are actually stainless. Some merely less prone to staining or rust. Well, shipping The marine industry usually has a specific grade to ensure it is as close to stainless as is possible because of the harsh environment it will spend its life in. Spaceship has very different requirements, weight being of primary concern. Now there are dozens and dozens of grades of stainless steel. Tesla, with work with SpaceX, have managed to develop their own grade, which exactly matches their use for it. It's really strong, it's hard, and highly rust resistant. But those properties also make it a nightmare to bend. Stainless steel is much easier to crack than just plain steel. So bends need to be kept to a minimum, hence the dramatic shape of the Cybertruck. There are hardly any bends in it. Now it was an immensely bold move, could have fallen flat, but it looks like it's paid off. So for the first time in 150 years of motoring, a car's been manufactured that does not need painting. Well, no, I tell a lie. What's Back to the Future? Anyway, before anyone shouts aluminium, that doesn't rust. No, but it corrodes. Aluminium is highly reactive, reacts with water and oxygen very readily to form aluminium oxide, which, strangely enough, bonds to the surface, protecting it perfectly from further corrosion. So it doesn't rust, but you cannot have a nice shiny durable finish. Anodizing, by the way, simply makes a slightly deeper coating of aluminium oxide, which is able to be dyed. Aluminium isn't. Well, now the 150-year unbroken record has been broken. You can bet everyone will be looking to see if it's possible, affordable or desirable for their vehicles. Getting rid of the most time and money consuming part of the assembly line is always going to be a goal. So having made the first, Tesla will now be looking to use this technique on other models, specifically the new soon-to-be-launched Model 2. That's a prime candidate. Well, back to stainless steel on the Cybertruck. Of course, if anyone wants to, they could just drive the truck into a paint shop and pay them to paint it. It would actually not be a hugely expensive option, as the bodywork is pretty much perfect, with no corrosion, and there'd be virtually no preparation needed, apart from stripping off removable bits and masking. But there's another option, and we're starting to see this, wrapping. We've already seen this on the first Cybertrucks delivered. Painting has a number of drawbacks. It's mainly about damage. First, it is, as we already know, quite expensive, requires multiple coats to get the desired finish. But then paint is relatively soft. Relatively. It's quite easily chipped by stones when you're driving, or if you brush down a narrow lane, past some trees or the hedges, you can scratch it easily. It then becomes quite difficult and expensive to repair. Well, wrapping is much more durable. It is a thick sheet coating material that sticks to the stainless steel. When applied professionally, it is almost every bit as attractive as paint, but far stronger. It's an extra layer over and above the body. It's cheaper. It has one final appeal. If you get bored with your chosen colour in a few years, you can just peel it off and put on a new wrap with a new colour. Or a new style, as Richard Simmons did with his Porsche Taycan. Yeah, that was the way he wanted it to look. And you actually see him removing it in this video when he decided he needed to sell it. Didn't want to sell it with the wrap on. So are we going to see loads of cars being delivered without paint? No, definitely not. Just look at how readily Legacy Auto took to releasing EVs. They made cars this way for over 100 years, and few, if any, are likely to change unless and until it is a better, quicker and cheaper process. Then they'll probably form a committee to look into the possibility. Then the accountants will look at their investments into painting cars as they do at the moment and decide whether that should be written off or whether they should drag that out for another few years to try and get their money back. Then, maybe. Will Tesla release any models without paint? Oh, absolutely. Well, 6 months ago, long before the Cybertruck launched, I predicted the Model 2 would be unpainted. And I stand by that prediction. If they can get the process working properly, it'll reduce costs and dramatically speed up the production line, further reducing costs. Production line turning out twice as many cars as anything up to half the fixed cost per car. It makes them cheaper. Well, who'll see if I'm right? Watch this space. I'm Dave. Well, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and click the notification bell so we can notify you next time we launch a video. And a massive thank you to all our Patreon supporters. It is your support that enables us to go out and make these videos for you. So thank you very much for your contribution. I'm Dave.